The need for effective, honest state institutions is widely accepted and understood, and international and domestic policymakers have tried a variety of ways to build state capacity and combat corruption around the world. This video summarizes the main types of reforms and highlights a few success stories from around the world. Anti-corruption reforms can be as broad as promoting political oversight of a bureaucracy by parliament, journalists, or civil society, and educating the public. This is not so much teaching people corruption is bad, but more how they can report having to pay a bribe. Often, though, they refer to a narrower set of actions, including legal reform, training, and transparency initiatives. Legal reforms start with revising countries' laws to ban corrupt practices. Nepotism, for example, is not illegal in every country, and many countries need legislation to protect whistleblowers who report corrupt activity. While passing new laws is an important first step, the bigger challenge tends to be enforcing these laws, creating agencies to make sure that senior officials who engage in corrupt activities are prosecuted and convicted. Anti-corruption also involves bureaucratic reforms. Bureaucracies create job descriptions and formal promotion processes in order to avoid favoritism for members of certain political parties or protégés of those big men. Poorly paid bureaucrats in developing countries also often receive skills training to better do their jobs. This is where a focus on capacity building comes in. Bureaucrats are trained in strategic planning and cost-benefit analysis, for example. Finally, many anti-corruption initiatives focus on transparency in government, requiring public officials to declare how much money they have in their bank accounts, or what corporate boards they're members of, promoting competitive procurement processes so that contracts don't go to insiders. This is the process by which government agencies buy everything from office supplies to construction contracts. And they also promote e-government to allow citizens to avoid paying bribes for basic services. One relative success story in fighting corruption is Indonesia's Corruption Eradication Commission, known as the KPK. This was created in 2002 to investigate and prosecute corruption in that country. Under strong leadership from the head of this organization, it developed an international reputation for targeting senior officials involved in corruption, and it had a 100% conviction rate in its first 13 years. Indonesia's Corruption Perception Index score improved from being ranked 122 in the world in 2003 to 88 in 2015. Success is largely credited to the early leaders of the Commission, who were well-respected figures in the country and focused on building a professional and skilled organization. A new trend in anti-corruption reform is asset recovery. This involves tracking down the assets of corrupt officials in global financial markets, seizing them under international law or the law of the country the assets are located in, and returning these assets to their countries. Officials in highly corrupt states don't usually keep their money in the local bank or as cash under the bed. They transfer their income from bribes and other corrupt activities to offshore bank accounts. And if the bribe comes from a multinational firm, it can be deposited directly. Some of the offshore accounts are in countries with strict financial privacy laws, like the Cayman Islands, but many open accounts, usually through a relative, in the UK or the United States in order to take advantage of the stability of the pound and the dollar. Forensic accountants scour financial records to look for evidence of unearned income or unusual transfers. Then lawyers will file suit in the United States and UK to seize illegally obtained money. For example, Azerbaijan, an oil-producing nation located between Russia and Iran in the Caucasus, has long had close ties with the UK, and British companies are heavily invested in the Azerbaijani oil sector. The government is highly repressive, however, and has repeatedly cracked down on public protests and political opponents. It's a model neo-patrimonial or predatory state. After a €3 billion scandal in which Azerbaijan used European banks to transfer bribes to both launder money and bribe EU politicians, the UK passed legislation to identify corrupt funds invested in Britain. The wife of a former Azerbaijani official who spent $21 million at Harrods over the course of a decade was the first person targeted under this law. Her bank accounts and property were seized when she was unable to explain how she could afford this when her husband's salary was just $70,000 a year. There are many more types of anti-corruption reforms and many organizations, both international and domestic, that promote them. This brief interview has provided you just an introduction, which hopefully will pique your interest in future research.